Good afternoon, good evening. Hi, everybody. This is June from Art and June, Delicacies of Society. I'm here with my friend Danny, and Danny's in New Orleans, right?
Yep.
And of course, the power of Zoom makes it possible for us to chat and to talk about the funky stuff that is happening all over the world. But for right now, we're going to actually just zone in and have a real great conversation about Danny and about what he's working on and who he is as a creative. And yeah, so hello, Mr. Danny. How are you? How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. And I'm super excited to be a part of this initiative that you're working on. It's an awesome concept and cause, something I'm totally behind from a number of different aspects. So thank you for having me for the conversation, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you so very much. Why don't you tell the people who you are and what you do? Because
Sure.
you're so talented. So what tell the folks a little bit about Danny.
Yeah, it's a little of jack of all trades, master of none situation. But I'm Danny. I grew up in Massachusetts, just outside Boston, and I now live in New Orleans, Louisiana. I work for myself, and I have a couple of different, I wouldn't call them jobs, but roles that I play throughout every day, really. For the purposes of this conversation, I'm an artist. I work with clay. I'm a ceramic artist or a potter, whichever you want to call it. Um, I focus on wheel throwing. So um, think bowls, mugs, plates, plant pots, that sort of thing, and more. And then in my alter ego, I'm a fitness trainer. So I do athletic training for um, both everyday folks and also some for a couple professional athletes as well.
Wow. Okay. So you do art in two spaces, really?
Yeah, if you consider the
Yeah,
fitness
yeah, yeah,
art,
yeah. You do art. Yeah, you do art with the body and you do art with clay.
there is an art to it for sure. We may touch on this later, but there is a little bit more crossover than you might think
Oh yeah.
between the fitness thing and the pottery. And then at home, I'm a partner and I'm also a dog dad. I've got my puppy might come over and say hi when I'm
Oh,
taking a nap.
nice,
And
nice.
then I am an at-home chef as well. I love to cook,
Really.
barbecue, bake bread, grilling, just kind of
So you're
learning,
like, but
trying
you
things.
think that's what's really cool, right? Because I think art is in everything we do, right? It's in every that's how I live anyway. And I feel like art is in everything that we do. So when we're talking about, what we do for our hobbies or for our jobs, anything that's creative to me is it speaks to art. Like as soon as you said that, I totally could put it together because it just makes it, I can see the artistry and everything that you just identified.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it too is like the processes when you boil them down, whether you're cooking or making pots or training, like some aspects of it, trial and error,
Hmm.
learning the methods, observing other people who do it really well, and who are successful, and borrowing elements of what they're doing to evolve how you're performing, is certainly fun. And then it is fun when you get crossover, like one of my favorite. I like to cook, especially because it's social. You have friends over, cook for them, show them some love.
Yeah.
It gets a good meal. But also, when you are a potter and you can make all of your cookware, like your platters and your dishes and your plates and bowls and things like that, to have someone over and cook for them, but then also serve them in in a vessel that you've created is a nice little
Correct.
chef's kiss touch to the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the other side to that. So after you've fed me all this great food in your pottery, utensils and cookware, then I get fat, then you take me to the trainer.
But yeah, so for some of my friends I have overfed to the point where they're like, okay, now I need to come to the gym tomorrow.
There
And
you
so,
go.
and
So it's like 360.
yeah, we do try to cook healthy in our house, but we splurge too, and we make fried chicken and desserts and things like that.
Course.
So Um, I've got a waffle iron that's like that's my baby. I love them. But yes, no,
Yeah.
there's a full life cycle to it. It all feeds into
I love
itself,
that.
and there's more crossover than you might think. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that to me is the beauty of when you do it effortlessly, right? When you're authentic enough with it, and when that's your gift and talent, however you came about it, to me, that's the beauty of when you know something is organic, when you're able to kind of just go from one thing to the other without even thinking about it because it's just kind of how you move, right? It's how you live. And I think that that's really cool. So what's your like favorite dish that you cook? Like what's the thing that you know when it's said and done that you could do it without failure?
yeah. The way I started cooking was on the grill. So I'm a big barbecue person. I know grilling and barbecue are obviously two different things. If a
Yeah.
lot of people conflate that, I won't get into the differences between the two. But if I smoke a rack of ribs, that's kind of my favorite thing to do. That's my specialty. I know that's coming out. That's
Really? Uh-huh. So how often do you eat ribs though?
um
Because
not that
now,
often because it's quite the process. I mean, they take 3 or 4 hours at least. That's
yeah,
the time on the grill. Then you've got the rest time and also the prep time, all that stuff. So it's kind of a process. But I would say a few times a year at least, I make a few racks of ribs. And usually when you're doing it, I make 3 or 4, and then I eat a couple of. I give most of them away.
right.
Wrap a half a rack up in tin foil, drop it off to this person, that person
Yeah,
if they
yeah.
couldn't come over. So not that often, but that is my favorite thing to do, and that is
That's cool. That's
uh,
cool. So what got you into fitness though? Like what was the thing that made you say like this is the other thing I want to do?
from a young age, I was always just really interested in being outside, being active, playing games, really competitive with my friends. And then we were just always at home. I grew up in Boston, and Boston professional sports were excellent during the time that I was. Tom
Right,
Brady was playing.
right.
Red Sox won their first couple World Series in almost 100 years. The Celtics and Bruins both won a championship, and the Celtics are about to hopefully
Celtics.
win
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one. So I think just growing up and watching sports on TV, but also then going outside into the driveway or into the backyard and playing with friends, that was like kind of that's where the interest grew. And then when I kind of came to it professionally accidentally when I moved back to New Orleans. I was coming from a desk job, like a 9 to 5, and it's a really long story, but essentially I ended up finding an abandoned gym and reopening it more from a business perspective than a fitness perspective. I was
Okay.
interested in being an entrepreneur, and then in the process of reinvigorating this gym, getting trainers, getting clients, getting members, things like that, building the brand, um, and being in the gym more and more, I started to pick up on things, and it had always been a passion, and then it became a business, and then I promised myself I was never going to be a trainer, and I just wanted to manage the business, and then it didn't take long for that to flip, and all I wanted to do was be training and
Right,
didn't
right.
care really so much for the day to day of running the business. But
Well, you're not only you're not, what does this say? You're not only the president, you're also the client.
yeah,
It's just
well,
a commercial.
so there's two things to that. Yeah, when you are an entrepreneur and are in small businesses and run small businesses, you realize, like, when I had the gym, I realized I told people I'm the CEO, I'm the janitor. Like, I'm cleaning the
Right.
bathroom, and I'm also making the decisions about what we're going to invest in or how much to charge for memberships, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but the other thing is making your passions into your business is also tricky. We hear all these things like, if you choose something you love, you never work a day in your life type of thing. But then also you spend to take something that you used to enjoy as a break for an hour a day, like getting a workout in or, going to a pottery class, and all of a sudden this is your job and you got to do it over and over again every day, even when you don't feel like it. Yeah, it can definitely take away from something you used to love when it becomes
Yeah.
it becomes
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it can go both ways and both at the same time. So um, I'm really blessed right now that I feel like I have a really good balance between the two. I think if I was spending 8 hours a day at the pottery studio or at the gym, I would probably be like, all right, I'm resenting this a little bit. I used to like this, but I'm here all the time. Right now, I have a really nice balance where I'm at the studio, half of the day, and I'm at the gym half of the day. And so
Okay.
just about the time where I'm like, okay, I kind of want to get out of here, then I jet and I go do the other thing, put on a new face,
That's
uh,
great.
like some other muscles.
Yeah. 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 That's great. So tell me something. So the pottery studio, you're that's your business as well?
So
You own it?
actually, right now I don't own either the gym or the studio. I rent space at both,
Right.
and that gives me the flexibility to be there when I want to be there, to do the part of it that I love and that I want to do, which is creating the art or training a client, working out. I don't have to worry about the financials of the business, the rent, the overhead, the employees, anything like that, and it gives me
Okay.
that flexibility, which is really nice. So
That's great. Yeah.
yeah, I rent space at both. It's structured differently, but I rent space at both places, and it allows me to be the artist and the trainer without having to
That's
have the
cool.
stress of the
That's
business.
cool. So tell me a little bit. So as you're let's get into that because finding a balance I think is really important, right? Particularly when we're talking about being entrepreneurs. And I literally was just having a conversation with somebody today about that I was having a challenging morning. I was up really late last night. I didn't really sleep well, so I was having a bit of a challenging morning, and I got up in my morning just kind of took off, and it just kind of like field rolled it, into the day. Um, and so we were just kind of talking about, when you have those kinds of moments, the fact that you are working for yourself, that's the stuff that makes you, really kind of have to stop for a minute and you have to take a breather, right? The challenge of that. What are some of the things that you find that you need to do to kind of center yourself as you get ready to go train somebody or work in your studio? Like, what are some of the challenges that you might find yourself running into sometimes as you're getting ready to enter into that space of, let's say, Zen? Like
Yeah,
before that, what have you had some challenges where you've been able to kind of like say, I don't want to do this anymore, this is a pain, this is whatever, whatever, whatever? Like, have you had some of those experiences? And if you have, how have you dealt with them?
for sure. So I think, and I'll speak especially to the pottery studio, but it also um, applies to the gym as well, as not trying to fit too much into too small of a time window, like not biting off more than you can chew. Um, there's a lot of times, especially in pottery, I work in sets where someone's ordered a set of 4 mugs or 6 bowls, and they all should match almost identically, ideally. Um, and it's tough to do, but it's easiest to do if you do it all in one sitting, because then they're created at the same time and they can move through the rest of the process at the same time. And if you're looking at the clock and watching the clock and going, oh, I've got 6 bowls to make and I've only got 2 hours to do it, which means I have 20 minutes a bowl. So you're already done. Like it's not going to work. You know what I mean? Um, Always give yourself more time, especially in the creative space, than you think you need. A lot of times it's going to take you more time and effort if you're rushing, because one of them's going to get messed up, or one of them's going to break, or something's going to go wrong because you're rushing, and that's going to end up setting you back more time than you're going to save. You know what I mean? Um, and it's true in the gym as well. Like, I've noticed, like, I can do 2 clients back to back, train for 2 hours solid, just have one walk out and the other one walk in. But as soon as you schedule a third and a fourth in a row, and now I haven't really drank as much water as I should probably. I definitely haven't really eaten as much as I should. I'm starting to fade. It's very physical. I'm demonstrating things. I'm trying to be present. and now I'm fading on my third client, or something like that. So just knowing your limits and knowing how much time you need to accomplish something, or giving yourself ample time, not trying to squeeze too many things in or biting off more than you can chew. But at the same time, as if you're making it your business, you do have to think about what's also efficient economically. Like it might not be worth it for me to go to the studio to make one bolt, with all the setup and cleanup and everything like that. It's just probably not economical. Same thing. I live 20 minutes from the gym. So for me to drive over to the gym for one client, I leave 30 minutes early. It's take 10 minutes to set up, train them for an hour, don't get home for 20 minutes after that. Like now that's 2 hours of my time, but only train one client. So you got to be
Cost effective.
cost effective and wise and efficient without also cramming too much in and biting off more than you can chew.
What made you come to like what uh you did you always have that logic to apply to this schedule? Because I have to wonder that maybe uh, some of this critical thinking came from some trial and error
Of course, it's trial and error.
situations.
You make a mistake. You book 4 clients you're a rookie trainer. You try to book as many clients in a row to make as much as money as you can in an afternoon, or accommodate their schedule because that's what they wanted. Or
Yeah,
go to the pottery studio, you only have 2 hours, but you're like, I can do this. I can make six bowl, and then it just all falls apart, and you didn't get anything for it as opposed
yeah,
to.
yeah.
So no, this is all born from mistakes that were made and lessons that were learned, and
Lessons learned. Yeah,
evolution, and not just like I made these mistakes once either. These are mistakes that you go, oh well, it didn't work that time, but it'll work. And then after a few times, you're like, okay, we gotta
got
adjust
it,
something here. Yeah,
got it. So what astonishes you amidst the creative process, though? Like, what is your light goes in and out.
I know
I'm
it's cool.
I'm feeling. Yeah, I don't know if it's your.
I'm gonna come closer because I think
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, your light's been going in and out, and I thought it was just the background, but maybe it's just your computer.
it's the camera sensing, like it wants to be it's Zoom's like technology sensing, but I think if
It
I
is, but now you're good.
stay close,
Now
we're
you're
good.
good. Yeah. So what astonished you still about the creative process, you think?
So this was the first question that you had on your list, and at first I was intimidated, but then I drove
Why?
around and thought about it. But uh, I think about the artistic process itself, and I'll just talk about pottery specifically.
Uh-huh.
That's my experiences. Is that sometimes you'll have like what you think is a fantastic idea, or a light bulb goes off, or you see something, or even if you're not trying something new, you'll be really confident in a project. I've done that before, like came out well, I can do it again, and it doesn't go as you expected. And then by the same token, I've gotten many orders or commissions, and people ask for some really like kind of bizarre bizarre ceramic things. But you're like, oh, I don't know if I can make that. Like, I don't even know if I want to make that, even if I
Right,
could.
right, right.
I'm not just talking about paraphernalia. I'm talking about just like everything. And sometimes it's the things you don't want to do or aren't as confident in that you'll then get an amazing result.
Yeah,
So there is not a lot of correlation between the feeling going into a project when you're holding the ball of clay and a feeling at the end of the project 8 steps later when you've got the finished piece.
right.
How confident you are or how inspired you are. There's a lot of times it goes the opposite way.
That's right.
That's what astonished me about the process, is that it's very unpredictable. I'm going to move so that this light is, hopefully that works a little better.
Okay, yeah. So what is the stuff that you create? So I had an artist tell me that the stuff that when he paints, he's a painter, but he said to me when he paints, the stuff that he really likes is the stuff that nobody else likes. That's what he's astonished by, right? And the stuff that everybody loves is the stuff that he thinks is not good. Do you
Yeah,
find that too?
all the time.
Really?
And especially in the second way you put it, which is that, I think this is very common with artists of all types, especially the ceramic artists I know, where what you see is the flaws because, or what you perceive to be the flaws because you've been so involved in the process, you've been so detail oriented, you know where you went wrong and where you went right, and then you see what you don't like about it.
Right, right,
And then you hand that finished product to someone who hasn't been a part of the process, who isn't a ceramic artist or doesn't know your modality, and then
right,
they see the finished product. Like, this is great. It's beautiful.
right,
What are you talking about? I'll pay
right,
you. I'll pay you a bunch of money for this. And you
right.
go,
Really?
but that is inherent. And then there are. It's much rarer, I think, that I like a piece than I don't like a piece. But
Okay.
there are pieces that I've gotten back where I've seen a lot of value in, and they've been either personal in some way or special in that they took I, I took a chance or I tried something new, and no one else would
Would
have
do
that
it.
value
Yeah,
associated to it. But to me, it's really special,
of
and
course.
I'm happy with the way it came out. But I would say 80% of the stuff I make, I'm like, oh, I hate this. Thank God I'm not going to live with it because someone else bought it and they're going to live
Right,
with it. They're
right,
going to see it every day. And I
right.
don't have to look at it anymore. And then there's occasionally some stuff that comes out. Occasionally, and I've worked on a project in April like this where I tried something new. The client gave me a lot of creative freedom, and it came out so surprising and well to me that I was like, damn, I wish I hadn't sold these. I wish I could keep
Right.
these. So so that
That's
that that
cool.
happens less frequently, but yeah.
So, what inspires you to continue when you are feeling at your lowest point, right? Usually you're excited about something, but then every moment there's a point in time when we're just not always feeling our best. How are you
Yeah.
managing that?
Yeah, no, I mean, disconnected from the creative process and just in our own lives and in our mental health, we get points that are our lowest and our highest. Everyone does. Um, and then you've got this creative artist piece of you, whether it's a hobby or a job.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't always keep creating. There are times where I don't feel well enough to go do it. There are times where I put it aside for a while, knowing
Okay.
I'll come back to it when I feel better.
Yeah.
There are also times those are at the really the lowest, but there are also low times when it's a sanctuary, when it's a safe space. Um, and I know the studio is going to be quiet. It's a shared studio, but it's going to be quiet. There may be someone I know who I can chat with a little bit, but other than that, I'll be left alone. Not going to be asked a whole lot of questions or bothered for anything. It's not going to be loud. Um, I can kind of retreat from the world and take that space. Um, and then there's more on kind of like a habitual basis. And I read something the other day about like when we create something, especially with our hands, there are happy brain chemicals that are released, like some specific endorphins and
Endorphins. Yeah.
that when we work, not only work with our hands, but also create something physical, that are really, so it is a good natural antidepressant if you can get yourself there. But there are no doubt times where I've been so low that I'm like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's heavy. No pun intended by any means, but I would think that that probably, is a lot for you to deal with when you're in those spaces, right? And how do you feel about that? Like what is the thing that in spite of it all, you say, okay, today I'm just gonna get up. I'm not feeling so great today, but I have some options, right? I'm gonna choose to get up today. Like, what is the thing that what if anything motivates you to get up, and at least try to make it a better day?
Yeah, because if you don't try, it's not going to get better. And trust me, I've had those days where I've laid there and I haven't gotten up. You know,
Yeah,
you submit, or you're like, I'm not fighting today, or I just don't have it in me, for either a single day, and then the next day you're like, feel just a little bit better. I can take that first step.
got it.
So while acknowledging that there are definitely days where and I'm sure many other people have not done that, and have just been like, I'm not doing it. But the thing that motivates me to get up when I can, when I am not completely on the mat, um, is just like, you don't know what you're going to find along the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not going to make you feel worse than you already feel.
Right.
Like, if you're feeling really shitty, you're going to do something that you generally like to do, even if you're not going to enjoy it right now because you feel really crappy.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's not going to make you feel worse than you feel before you go. So don't have a lot to lose,
Okay.
and you have a lot to gain, if that makes sense.
Okay. What's your what's your time frame in terms of when you're not feeling your best? Like, have you noticed that the time for you to recover feels shorter now? Or is every situation or every episode a different experience for you?
Yeah. So we didn't talk explicitly about this, but because we're getting closer to it, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was in college. So I was about 20. Um, and so I do have episodes of extreme depression, and also kind of on the other end of the spectrum of mania. Um, but talking about those episodes of depression, I mean, there, I don't think is a direct correlation, or like those periods. I don't think those episodes are necessarily getting shorter as my life goes on and I gain more experience with it. But um, you do get more strategies and tools, and hopefully allies, you know, and more people that are close to you come to understand that it's not necessarily something that you can control, and that it is a medical condition, and understand what you're dealing with, but also how to support you better as you're also doing that for yourself.
Got it.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the first time you go through it is generally the scariest, just because you don't know what to expect, and you don't know if it's permanent, or if you're going to come out on the other side.
Yeah.
Uh, and then subsequent episodes are scary in their own way, but at least you have a little bit more of a map and some expectations, and also understand what you can do and who you can rely on to.
Mm-hmm. To get you through. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that that is sensitive, and it's sensitive for so many reasons. And I think I might have probably even shared with you that, a depression was something that I suffered with or was diagnosed with in my 20s. Um, did not really know what it was either, but realized that something was different. And realized that I needed to be able to understand what it really was, until I went one day to the doctor, because I just felt blue. I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell you what was going on. I was still working, and I had my daughter, but I just felt different, and I would just get very emotional. And when I went to the doctor and explained my symptoms, then they told me what it was. Um, but to your point, being able to learn how to cope, to have some coping mechanisms, fast forward however many years later, I know there are things I need to do to manage that, right? Because I know I don't think it ever leaves you, for me anyway. I know that there are things I need to do to make sure that I manage it.
Yeah.
So when I said to you, like, I didn't sleep really well last night, I know if I have repetitive days like that, where it can lead, right? So I'm mindful of that. And striking that balance that you talked about, I think is so very important. I don't take medication, but I also know that I have to exercise, I have to sleep, I have to eat, I have to do certain things in order for me to be able to stay, on an even keel as much as possible. Tell me what is the biggest thing that you feel in sense of support that you've been able to get, that has allowed you to just kind of know that your support system really understands you, really gets you. Like, what is the one thing that has changed from when you first noticed that you had this challenge to now? Like, what has gotten easier for your family in terms of how they are supporting you and how you're receiving that?
Yeah. I had such a similar experience to you. I think the first time you go through anything, you don't know really what's going on. And then and you've heard of depression, but you don't know if this fits into that. Like,
Right, right.
you don't have a DSM or like whatever. So you're just like, I don't know
Yeah,
if these are the symptoms that associate with that
yeah,
issue
yeah, yeah.
illness. And then once you have been through it, you're like, oh, and then exactly like you talked about, warning signs are a huge one, especially for bipolar folks, of like, am I not sleeping? Am I overeating? Am I not eating enough? Am I too active? Am I underactive? All that stuff is huge for warding off and mitigating future things. But as far as dealing with, like support system and how I interact with them and how available they are. I mean, so much has changed. I think the biggest thing is when I initially was first depressed and manic and diagnosed when I was in college. Uh, I was super ashamed of no volition. No one around me was like, "Oh, you should really be ashamed of that."
Right, right,
I just felt like I was sick and something was wrong with me, and especially since it was nothing physical that anyone could see, like I looked like a young, healthy
right.
man. Um, yeah, I was just like, I don't really know that much about this, and I don't know if I also like, my biggest fear was I would tell my friends and they would be like,
Mm,
oh, we don't want to be friends with you anymore,
right,
basically.
right.
um Either because they had heard that someone who was bipolar was out of control, or or it had a bad stigma from movies and
That's
stuff like
right.
that. But once I was able to communicate to friends and family what I was diagnosed with and what I was going through, and then received the exact opposite of what I had feared in
Mm,
return, and just like the overwhelming, like, either I would hear like one of three things, and I'm super blessed, but like I would hear one of three things. I would hear like, oh yeah, my brother has that, or my dad is bipolar, or I have a family member or another friend who
yes,
is dealing
yes.
with that. I know a lot about it. Or I would hear, I don't know anyone else who has that, but I'm about to do a whole bunch of research to make sure that I know what you're going through as much as possible without going through it myself, and so I can support. Like, either people knew but weren't talking about it, or I just hadn't been plugged in and hadn't been listening to it, and had experience with it and weren't scared off, or they didn't, but they were willing to do that research.
To try. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to
And then the
understand.
third option I never
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
of,
yeah.
like, which was like, oh, that's terrifying. Like, I can't have you in my life. So uh, I didn't get the reaction I anticipated in the best way possible. And then
Glad about that.
thank you, me too. And then over time, with friends and family, seeing me go through episodes and actively being either by my side and either at doctor's appointments or hospital or out of the hospital, and seeing me at baseline and at either end of the spectrum and everywhere in between, like, everyone, including myself, but also my friends and family, got more and more comfortable with it and understanding what they could do to help me stay
Yeah,
as long as possible and as healthy as possible, and what resources were available to us and what resources were appropriate at various points.
sure.
Uh,
Yeah. I
Everyone
I
in my
you
life, and
I think that's really interesting because I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were telling me, that when they were diagnosed, they didn't tell anybody because they didn't know how the folks would respond to that. And I I am not surprised, right? Because the whole reason when we started talking, the whole reason I was saying what I was saying to you about why I wanted to do this was because there's the stigma attached to this thing that, people are like, oh, they're crazy or they're whatever. And for me, that always bothered me. And I didn't understand why it is that it was so different than somebody who went to the dentist or who needed to go to their primary care doctor or who needs to go to a gynecologist or whatever. You know what I mean? This is your head. This controls your entire body. So to me, if this isn't right, or if there was some kind of issue here, I would think that you would be it's like duh. Why would you not go and get it checked out? Why would you not go for therapy, right? Um, and I think that's really interesting. And so I feel like, any way that I can destigmatize this and amplify, I want to do that, right? I want to tell the stories. I want to be able to educate folks because I think a lot of it also is the fact that people are just kind of illiterate to the issue. They hear mental health, and then they go, oh, mental illness. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't even like to say mental illness because for me, it's really mental health or it's mental wellness. And so I feel like at the end of the day, we need to really be better educated in how we raise awareness and how we can support people who might need our support or our understanding when they need it. So thank you for that. What's the one regret that you don't want to have? In all of the things we've talked about, what is like the one regret that, you come to see that your day is coming to an end, your life is coming to an end, God forbid. What is the one regret you don't want to have?
well, it's going to happen at one point, sooner or later.
Yeah, it is, but I'd like it
But
to be much, much later than sooner.
sure. Um, I think I don't want to get to the point where more of my life is behind me than ahead of me, and be looking back and thinking about it and being like, I played it safe. I didn't take that risk, or
Mm,
I didn't, whether that's something small, like something you want to try at
ooh,
the studio or at the
wait,
gym.
Daddy, hold on. Okay, go ahead. My screen just went black. Okay, go ahead.
Be back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But like whether it's something small on a daily basis, like, oh, I didn't try throwing that giant pot that I wasn't sure if I could do, or I didn't try doing this thing at the gym that I didn't want to do. Like that's on a daily basis. But then like, oh, I didn't try starting my business, or I didn't, you know, take a chance and ask that person out, and then if it goes well, ask them to be my partner, and then
Right.
if it goes well, ask them to be my,
Your wife or
spouse or whatever.
something.
Like,
Right.
just I don't I'm and maybe to too much of an extent, but I am not very risk averse because I don't want to look back in the rear view and be like, oh, I didn't try that, I didn't take that
Yeah.
risk, I had the chance. uh,
Yeah. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, but didn't.
so yeah, I generally almost seek out the failure, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like I'm going for this, and like it could go great, but it's probably going to go terrible, and that's fine because at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of clay, and I can just mush it back all together, wedge it up again, and either try the same thing again, knowing what, a little more than I knew the first
Before.
time,
Yeah.
or do something different because I realized the first idea wasn't going to work or whatever. But it's, like that clay metaphor, obviously for pretty
No,
much
no, no,
everything.
that's cool. But I mean, I guess that can work for a dish, right? That can work for exercise too if you're training somebody, right? If
Yeah.
if they get injured or if they come to you with an injury, they can't do something, you're going to teach them to do something else that's going to help them in the process of whatever it is they need to have in terms of healing for that injury, right? So I mean, I think it's not being afraid to try, and I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think that there are many people who there are a lot of people who play it safe, you know and the only thing that they have is their jobs, or the only thing that they have is their whatever. But I get it, and I think that's a part of being an entrepreneur, and that's a part of being a creative.
And
you know
I tell like obviously when you have a client in the gym, you want to keep them as safe as possible, right? You don't want to cause
right.
more harm than good, and you don't really want to cause any harm at all. You want to keep them safe. But I also tell them if you can do everything in a given hour that you're with me, if you can do everything that I ask of you and show you, like that's not a good session because I didn't push you hard enough. And I don't just
Right.
mean like, oh, you should have
Right.
lifted heavier or you should have ran 10 more sprints or whatever. Like I might just mean like trying to keep you off balance, like literally off balance, or just testing you in different safe ways, but to a point where you're gonna fail at some point during the session, and that's okay because you did 99 of the other things that I asked you to do. You just didn't get
Right.
one done, and then we'll come back and try the one next time.
Yeah, and that's how you build muscle, really. Right? That's how you build muscle. That's how you master things. That's how you grow. That's how you transform. I think that's the beauty of it. So what's next for you?
So from an artistic perspective, um, in the studio, I am trying to actually currently, like as of yesterday, work on a couple of new things. The first thing is throwing really, really big pots, which gets exponentially harder to do the more clay you use and the bigger you're trying to
Yeah,
make. And I
yeah.
completely failed at doing it yesterday. And today I went back and wedged the clay, and tomorrow I'm going to try again. So that's like literally happening as we speak. Um, I'm really into plants, and so I'm making plant pots a lot recently, and so I'm trying to make the biggest plant pot I possibly can for a client. So that is the challenge of this week. So bigger pots, and then the other thing I've been working on in the studio is a collaboration with another artist. So potters are shouldn't be bucketed, but you can kind of if you're in a studio, there's basically wheel throwing folks and hand building folks. Um, and a friend that I've made in this open studio, his name is Henry, is by trade a tattoo artist, but he's also a painter, and now he's moved into clay and he makes these fantastic, very realistic sculptures, basically the faces, heads, animals, things
Cool.
like that. And so we've worked on a couple of things together where I've thrown a pot, and then he has added on sculpture to it. So now it's
Yeah.
like both a functional vessel and has that like specific custom aesthetic. And if you're interested, I'll show you one at the
Yeah,
end. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I definitely well, I told you that I'm coming to New Orleans.
yeah,
So when I come, I definitely would love to see some of the stuff that you guys are working on,
yeah.
if that's possible.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can come to the studio if you want. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay.
I have a lot of work here. I always say the irony is like the 98% of the things I've made I no longer own because they've been sold. Um, but so that's in the studio, and then from like more of a business perspective,
Hmm.
pottery, I spent a lot of time this spring working with a graphic designer and marketing person who helped me come up with a physical portfolio, or not like an actual portfolio. It's called a line sheet for like commercial purposes, but it's more or less a catalog. Uh,
Hmm.
and so I've got a full like 20-page catalog of all my work and categorized and shows your glaze options and your shape options
That's nice.
and so I'm going to use that going forward. Hopefully, I'm moving into more commercial work, getting more restaurants, coffee shops, that sort of thing. I want to get those those big orders from commercial
Yeah,
venues to carry my stuff. So
nice. And what about your training? How is that? What's next for you in there in that space?
the training is fun, and going really well. I've kind of, as I mentioned earlier, when I moved back to New Orleans, I opened my own gym and started training and built up a huge clientele. And then between COVID and some mental health challenges, I like wiped the slate completely clean. I'm no longer involved with the gym, and I pretty much like had no clients when I came back to New Orleans a while back. So I'm slowly building up the clientele again. One of my best friends, who has been a client for almost 5 years, maybe six,
Yeah.
is a professional boxer. And so we work out, I work out with him. We work out together twice a week. So just working, he's between fights right now. So he's at home, and we're working on getting him ready for his 19th professional fight.
Wow,
Uh,
that's great.
and then my other really best friend here in New Orleans owns the gym that I train out of. He's an ex NFL athlete, and was at Tulane with me at the same time I went to Tulane. And he owns this gym that I'm training out of, and just working with him, he's super creative. He's also kind of a jack of all trades, like is in a million different businesses. But I'm trying to work with him to grow
Nice.
his gym business, but like how we can collaborate on other stuff, and just push
Yeah,
the group effort forward, and also just um, the New Orleans wellness scene is not what it is in DC and New York and
yeah.
Chicago. We don't have
In
an advanced
LA.
in LA, right? So
Yeah.
we don't have that advanced kind of fitness industry, or culture around New Orleans. So bringing wellness to New Orleans, making it accessible to as many folks as possible who are interested, is kind of one of the things that he's working on, and I'm trying to help him with that.
That's cool. That's cool. Um, what is what is your website, Instagram? Tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. My best way to find me is on social. I'm only on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. But it's my name at Danny Zheutlin. I'm sure we can, it'll be spelled. We can tag it. It's tough last name, but at Danny Zheutlin on Instagram, that's the best place to find me. That's where I sell all my pottery and post all my training stuff.
Okay.
The website for the pottery is in the works. The catalog that I just mentioned was the first step to being able to have the content, the visual content and the copy and everything
Okay.
like that to build a website. So the website will probably be ready sometime end of summer, fall, and that will be anonymousceramicist.com.
Anonymous ceramicist.
But
That's cute.
thank you.
How do you spell ceramicist? Without the C, the S?
Pop quiz. No, it's a C. Ceramicist. Yeah,
C
CIST.
CIS. Oh, cyst. Okay.
Ceramicist.
Okay. I didn't have the T at the end. That's actually very cute. .com?
I'll get that
All
.com,
right.
or I
You
may already
should.
have.
Yeah, you should have that. Um, because that's a very creative. But I won't. I'll just put your Instagram handle. Because I
Yeah,
feel like that's important. A lot of people do Instagram, and so at least when we tag folks, we will definitely tag you.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, Instagram is such a weird place, but it's also been so helpful to me for not only like
yeah. So
communicating
you
and
do
being,
do you do threads too or no? Are you on threads?
oh no, I'm not on Threads. I'm like,
Yeah, I just started doing threads probably, I don't know, few months now, but I don't think I use it as much as I do. I go check it out, but I don't think I use it as much as I do Instagram and Facebook. And I know some people don't even do Facebook anymore, but I still do. Um,
yeah.
but it's like I don't do TikTok, so it's like
You gotta
whatever.
pick. I mean, there's
I
so
can't,
many.
it's too
You
much.
can't do it
I do
all.
LinkedIn. I mean, I have a Twitter, but I don't really use Twitter. But I have Instagram, I have Facebook, and I have Threads, and I have LinkedIn, and that's enough for me to keep up,
More
to
than
do
enough.
it, to
Yeah, that
post,
is.
because I'm posting different content, different spaces, right? Sometimes some things overlap, but for the most part, I use those different platforms for different things. And then I have maybe two Facebooks, two Instagrams. So it just gets to be a bit much. But
I had all that, and then I just
it's a
consolidated it.
lot.
It's all on one Instagram. That's
Yeah,
it.
it's a lot.
That
It's a
posts
lot.
automatically to Facebook, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a lot because I feel like, um, you have to be relevant with the information or the content, or what's the point in doing it, right? But you get to a point where it gets overwhelming sometimes, and you're like, okay, I just haven't posted anything on that, and it doesn't make any sense. So I might have to synthesize some of that. But an hour is always, it goes so quickly, and I really wanted to have this time to chat with you because I just think, it's fascinating what you're doing, and I think that you are a courageous warrior of a man, and I thank you for being open and for being vulnerable and for being candid. That to me is what this is about. Um, and so I thank you for your time. But I do want to ask you, what does art mean to you? Now that we've had all of this stuff to talk about, we've talked about mental health and episodes and all that stuff. What does art mean to you?
Yeah, if I and you didn't ask me who I am,
I
but
well, yeah, I kind of did. I kind of was like, well, tell the people who Danny is. But
I
okay,
think we kind of covered that.
yeah,
Art to me, like at its simplest, at its core, is just inspire. It's a place to be inspired to either do something or feel something. And that's the key as an artist, right? Is like, can you draw either action or emotion or both from the person receiving it? Um, and then to also find that inspiration not only in other artists who are doing something similar to you, but like I see things that someone's painting or that someone's dancing or singing, and it gives me an emotion, and then I will feel like, well, maybe if I tried this at the studio the next time I'm there, like, but that's it's just like constant, like that ball rolling down the hill, and maybe it's not how they intended it, or maybe they didn't intend it to be anyway, and it just was to be how I received it, and vice versa. But
yes.
it's at its core, it's whatever the form of the art. It's like it's to me a vessel for inspiration to do or feel.
And that's the beautiful thing. And that's what makes you a delicacy of society. You know, the fact that you're able to do and to be, I think that's just great. And I think, I thank you so much for being able to spend some time with me to just dig in a little bit in the weeds and see what we find.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will not be the last time that we see or hear of what you're doing, because we want to be able to to get visions and pictures and images of some of the stuff that you've created, so that we're able to then begin to exhibit some of that stuff, as we do some exhibit stuff. So some other stuff down the road we've got planned. But I think this has been a really great introduction to the work that we want to begin to do. And anything that we can be of assistance to you in or with, happy to do that, because I think it's critically important. And I think that, what you're doing is good stuff, and it's stuff to help motivate somebody else on their journey. So thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for your effort.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. What you're doing is good stuff. This is what we need more of. So let me know how I can help and be a part of the journey that you're
Absolutely.
on, and
Absolutely.
I'll do anything I can to help and push it forward, because it's such a good idea and such a good cause.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Hold tight.
Take care.
Okay.